What if I told you that the very pills you trust every single morning, the ones lined up neatly beside your bed, like silent guardians of your health, could actually be working against you, slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, putting stress on the one organ you absolutely cannot afford to gamble with, your heart? And I know that sounds dramatic, maybe even a little unbelievable. But stay with me, because this is where things get real fast. Because just a few months ago, I sat across from a man, 72 years old, sharp mind, clean lifestyle, never smoked, walked every day, did everything right. The kind of person everyone assumes will live forever. And yet he looked at me and said something that stuck with me. He said, "Doc, I don't feel like myself anymore. Not pain, not something obvious. Just this quiet feeling that something was off. Like his body was whispering a warning he couldn't quite understand." And when we started digging deeper, when we ran the tests, when we looked beyond the surface, what we found wasn't aging. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't genetics suddenly catching up to him. It was something much simpler and much more unsettling. It was the combination of medications he had been faithfully taking for years. Medications he never questioned, because why would he? They were prescribed. They were supposed to help, right? And that's where most people over 60 find themselves. Trusting the system, trusting the routine, trusting that if something was wrong, someone would have told them by now. But here's the uncomfortable truth. No one really says out loud. Your body after 60 is not the same body that started those medications years ago. It doesn't process the same. It doesn't recover the same. It doesn't tolerate the same chemical load the way it once did. And suddenly, what used to be safe can start behaving differently. Slower clearance, higher accumulation. Subtle interactions, stacking on top of each other like layers. You don't even notice until something starts to crack. And the heart. It's always the first place where that silent pressure shows up. Because your heart doesn't get to take breaks. It doesn't get a day off. It just keeps going, adapting, compensating, adjusting to every little change happening inside your system. Even the ones you don't feel. Especially the ones you don't feel. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Because most people expect heart problems to come with loud warnings. Chest pain. Dramatic symptoms. Something that forces you to pay attention. But that's not how this works. Not always. Sometimes it's subtle, almost sneaky. A little extra fatigue that you blame on a bad night's sleep. A little dizziness when you stand up that you laugh off, like guess I stood up too fast. A bit of swelling in your ankles that you chalk up to getting older. But these aren't random. They're clues. Small signals that your body is trying to send you. And the scary part is how easy it is to ignore them. Because they don't feel urgent. They don't demand attention. They just sit there, quietly, building over time. And this is exactly how medication-related heart stress creeps in. Not like a storm, but like a slow leak. You don't notice until the damage is already done. And I need you to hear this clearly. This is not about fear. This is about awareness. Because awareness is what gives you control. And right now, too many people are operating on autopilot. Taking multiple prescriptions every day, without ever stepping back and asking the one question that could change everything. Is this still right for me now? Not 10 years ago. Not 5 years ago. But right now. In this version of your body. At this stage of your life. Because things change. Your organs change. Your sensitivity changes. Your tolerance shifts. And yet the medication routine often stays exactly the same. Untouched. Unquestioned. Almost like it's frozen in time. And that mismatch, that gap between your current body and your old prescriptions, that's where the risk lives. That's where the silent strain begins. And I've seen it too many times to ignore. Patients walking in thinking they're dealing with aging, when in reality, their heart is simply overwhelmed. Juggling too many chemical signals at once, trying to keep rhythm, while being pulled in different directions by medications that were never meant to interact the way they now do inside an older body. And you might be thinking, well, my doctor would have caught that. And I wish I could say that's always true. I really do. But the reality is, appointments are short. Systems are busy. And unless something obvious shows up, these subtle issues can slip through the cracks. Not because anyone is careless, but because this kind of problem doesn't scream, it whispers. And if no one is listening closely, it goes unnoticed. And that's why this moment right here matters. Because you're listening now, you're aware now. And that gives you an edge most people don't have. And let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually felt fully in control of your health? Not just going through the motions. Not just taking what you're told, but truly understanding what's happening inside your body. Because if you're being honest, for many people, it's been a while. And that's not your fault. Life gets busy. Routines take over. And before you know it, years go by, without ever questioning the small things that could make a big difference. And medications, they fall right into that category. Especially when they've become part of your daily life, almost invisible in their familiarity. But just because something is routine doesn't mean it's harmless. Especially not over time, and especially not without reevaluation. And here's the part that really hits hard. Sometimes all it takes is a small adjustment to change everything. Not stopping everything. Not drastic decisions. Just small, smart, informed changes. Adjusting a dose, switching a medication, spacing them differently. Things that seem minor, but can have a massive impact on how your heart responds. And yet, those changes only happen when someone asks the question, when someone speaks up, when someone refuses to stay passive. And that someone needs to be you. Because at the end of the day, no one lives in your body but you. No one feels what you feel. No one notices those subtle shifts the way you do. And that awareness, that instinct, that quiet voice telling you something might be off. That's not something to ignore. That's something to explore. And if this is hitting you right now, if something in your mind is clicking, if you're starting to connect dots you never connected before, don't brush it off. Don't tell yourself you'll think about it later. Because later is where problems grow. Later is where small issues turn into big ones. And you deserve better than that. You deserve clarity. You deserve confidence. You deserve to know that what you're putting into your body is actually helping, not quietly hurting. And if you've made it this far, I want you to pause for just a second and really think. How have you been feeling lately? Not the automatic, I'm fine, but the honest answer, the real one. Because your body is always talking. The question is whether you're ready to listen. And here's where things take a turn that most people never see coming. Because once you start paying attention, once you actually begin to listen to your body, instead of brushing it off, patterns start to emerge. Little things you used to ignore suddenly feel connected, like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. And that's exactly what happened with a woman I spoke to not long ago. 68. Full of energy just a few years back. The kind of person who lit up every room she walked into. Always moving, always doing something. Always alive in that vibrant, unmistakable way. And then slowly, almost so slowly, she didn't even notice at first. Things started changing. She got tired more easily. Stairs felt heavier. Her heart would occasionally race for no reason, just out of nowhere. Like it was trying to tell her something, but she didn't understand the language yet. And like most people, she did what we all do. She normalized it. She said, "This is just what aging feels like." She adjusted her expectations, lowered her energy, accepted a version of life that was smaller than what she used to have. And that right there, that moment where people start shrinking their expectations instead of questioning their circumstances, that's where the real danger begins. Because not everything that changes after 60 is just aging. And believing that without question can cost you years of quality life you didn't have to lose. And when we finally reviewed her medications, line by line, detail by detail, what we found was eye-opening. Not one single bad drug, nothing obviously dangerous on its own, but together, layered over time, interacting in subtle ways. They were placing a constant, low-grade stress on her cardiovascular system, nudging her heart out of rhythm, altering her blood pressure response, creating fluctuations her body had to fight to stabilize every single day. And over time, that fight drains you. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly. Like a battery losing charge you didn't realize was running out. And when we made small adjustments, not extreme, not reckless, just careful, informed changes. Something incredible happened. Her energy came back. Her breathing improved. That random heart racing stopped. And the look on her face when she realized she wasn't just getting old, she was actually reclaiming her health. That moment, that shift in understanding, that's why this conversation matters so much. Because too many people are living below their potential health, not because they have to, but because no one ever told them to question the routine. And let me be clear again, this is not about stopping medications on your own. That's not smart. That's not safe. This is about partnership, about having real conversations with your doctor, about asking better questions, about saying, hey, this is how I've been feeling. Could my medications be playing a role? And not settling for quick answers, not brushing it aside. Because your health deserves more than a rushed conversation. It deserves attention, detail, care, and intention. And I want to say something that might sound a little bold, but it's the truth. Being passive about your health after 60 is one of the biggest risks you can take. Because this is the stage of life where small adjustments create massive results, where awareness becomes your greatest asset, where asking one extra question can literally change the trajectory of your life. And if you're still here, still listening, still engaged, that tells me something about you. It tells me you care. It tells me you're not the type to just sit back and let things happen without understanding them. And that right there is powerful. That mindset alone puts you ahead of millions of people who never even think about this stuff until it's too late. So here's what I want you to do next. And this is simple, but important. Don't wait for a crisis. Don't wait for something dramatic to force your attention. Take control now. Make a list of everything you're taking, every prescription, every over-the-counter pill, every supplement, all of it. And bring that list to your next appointment. And ask one clear, direct question. How is this affecting my heart at my age? And then listen. Really listen. Ask follow-ups. Push for clarity. Because this is your life, your heart, your future. And you have every right to understand it fully. And if this message resonated with you, even a little bit, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone you care about. A parent, a sibling, a friend. Because chances are they're in the same situation and they don't even realize it yet. And before you go, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt like something was off but couldn't explain it? Drop a comment below and tell me your experience. Because your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And remember, the goal here isn't fear, it's empowerment. It's awareness. It's taking back control of your health in a way that most people never do. Because the truth is, your heart has been taking care of you your entire life. Non-stop, every second, every beat. And now it's your turn to return the favor, starting today. And let me tell you something most people don't realize until it's almost too late. Your body is incredibly loyal. It will fight for you, compensate for you, adjust for you. It will bend in ways you never even notice, just to keep you going, just to keep your heart beating steady, your blood flowing, your life moving forward. And that's exactly why these problems can stay hidden for so long. Because your body is doing everything it can to protect you, even when something isn't right, even when the balance is off, even when the medications you depend on are starting to create a kind of silent pressure. Your system was never meant to carry long term. And here's the part that hits people the hardest, when they finally understand it. The symptoms you've been ignoring, the little things you brushed off, the moments you told yourself it's nothing. Those weren't random. Those were signals. Your body tapping you on the shoulder again and again, saying, hey, something's not right. But life gets busy. Routines take over. And it's so easy to push those signals aside, to normalize them, to accept a lower version of how you feel without ever questioning why. And that right there is where people lose years of quality life. Not because they had to, but because they didn't realize they had a choice. And I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine waking up with more energy, clearer breathing, a steadier heartbeat, feeling more like yourself again, not 10 years younger, magically, but noticeably better, lighter, more in control, because your body is no longer fighting unnecessary battles inside. That's not some fantasy. I've seen it happen over and over again. When people take the time to reassess, to question, to adjust, to stop running on autopilot, and actually take ownership of what's going into their body. And here's where I'm going to be very direct with you, because you deserve honesty, not comfort. If you are over 60 and you have never had a detailed medication review, specifically focused on how your heart is responding, you are taking a risk, whether you realize it or not. Not a guaranteed disaster, not something to panic about, but a risk that can quietly grow over time. And the frustrating part is how preventable it often is. How something so simple, a conversation, a review, a small adjustment, can completely change the outcome. And yet most people never take that step, because no one told them it mattered this much. And now you know. Now you can't unhear this. Now you have a level of awareness that puts you in a completely different position. And what you do with that awareness, that's where everything changes. Because knowledge without action doesn't protect you. It just sits there, unused, like a tool left in the box. And I don't want that for you. I want you to actually use this. Take that next step, even if it feels small, even if it feels like it's probably nothing. Because those are the exact moments that matter most. The quiet decisions, the small actions, the willingness to check instead of assume, to ask instead of ignore. And let me speak to something deeper for a moment. Something emotional, something real. Because this isn't just about numbers on a chart or medications on a list. This is about your life, your time, your ability to enjoy the years ahead with strength, clarity, and confidence. It's about being present with the people you love without feeling drained or limited. It's about waking up and feeling like yourself instead of a version that's just getting by. And too many people slowly drift away from that without realizing why. They adapt. They shrink their expectations. They accept less energy, less clarity, less life. And they call it aging, when in reality, part of that decline might not be inevitable at all. Part of it might be something you can influence, something you can improve, something you can take control of, starting right now. And I know there's a part of you that might still be thinking, but what if everything is fine? What if this doesn't apply to me? And that's exactly why you check. Not because you're sure something is wrong, but because you care enough to make sure everything is right. Because peace of mind comes from clarity, not assumptions. And if everything checks out, great. You move forward with confidence. But if something needs adjusting, even slightly, you've just given yourself a better chance at protecting your heart long term. And that's a win in every possible way. And before we close this, I want to bring it back to you, because this entire conversation, every word, every story, every example, it all comes down to one simple truth. Your health is not something you leave on autopilot. Especially after 60, it requires awareness, attention, and sometimes the courage to ask questions you've never asked before. And if you've stayed with me until this moment, that tells me you're ready for that. You're not here by accident. Something about this resonated with you. Something made you stop and think. And that's where change begins. Not in dramatic moments, but in quiet realizations like this one. And I want you to hold on to that feeling, that awareness, that curiosity, because it's one of the most powerful tools you have. And now, let's turn that into action. So here is suggestion, very important. Do not ignore before this day ends. Take 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. Sit down with a piece of paper or your phone and write down every single thing you take. Every prescription, every over-the-counter pill, every vitamin, every supplement. Don't skip anything. Then, look at that list and ask yourself honestly, do I fully understand how all of this is affecting my heart right now? And if the answer is no, don't guess, don't assume, don't wait. Schedule a proper medication review with your doctor or a qualified pharmacist. And when you go, don't rush it. Don't let it be a quick check. Ask directly, at my age, with my body now, are these still the best choices for my heart? And listen carefully. Ask follow-up questions. Push for clarity, because this is your life we're talking about. And one more thing, pay attention to your body over the next few days. Notice your energy, your breathing, your heartbeat, your balance. Don't ignore the small signals anymore, because those small signals are often the first signs of something bigger, and catching them early can make all the difference. And finally, if this message made you think differently, even for a second, share it with someone you care about. Because the truth is, millions of people are in this exact situation right now, and they have no idea, and you might be the reason they finally wake up to it. And if you haven't already, drop a comment and tell me what you're feeling after hearing this. I read every single one, and your voice matters more than you think. Because awareness spreads person to person, story to story, and together, we can help more people protect what matters most: their heart, their health, and their time.